The history of realism was founded around the second half of the 19th century, around the 1830s. Among its main principles, realism created it to be seen more than just an art movement. Realism expresses an object seen or even subject through that which is perceivable, ignoring all romanticism and subjectivism or any other kind of style that ruins something as it really exists. These realists found their faith observing into the smallest detail of objects, later solving all human problems. Realism rejects classicalism and romanticism as a genre of art because it does not focus on the real-world lives and issues of middle and lower class of normal suburban people. Anything that is considered as everyday living could be considered as art. This is because people can associate with everyday problems of everyday man. At the time of creation of Impressionism in the 1860s, there was a dynamic change in oil painting where traditional art and innovative art were being merged into one independent by non-academic artists like Edward Manet and Edgar Degas. They were producing a new style of oil painting which applied to the modern age and the next decade, 1870s, and we know that style as Impressionism. Modern art first emerged roughly around the 1860s to the 1970s and was the art during that era. Modern art is when you see things through a different perspective and with fresh ideas about nature and materials and functions of art. Modern art began its legacy of paintings by painters like Vincent van Gogh and Paul Cézanne, of whom were the developers of modern art. The main artists who were attracted by this movement was the Romantics, Realists and Impressionists. By the late 19th century, there was movements which were to be influenced people that modern art has emerged. The influences for this movement was varied: Eastern decorative arts, Japanese paint making, the art of Turner and de la Roque. Realism has also been found in the work of such modern artists like Jean-Francois Millet. Post-Impressionism as a Western painting style art movement in France was an extension of Impressionism and had no limitations. The art term Post-Impressionism was coined by the English art critic Robert Fry for the work of such late-century painters that influenced the genre, such as Paul Cézanne, Georges Seurat, Paul Gauguin, Vincent van Gogh, and the Faves were a loosely shaped group of artists sharing similar approaches to nature but had no definite program. Two French painters by the name of Matisse and Renoir created the movement The Faves, otherwise known as the Wild Beasts. The movement mainly consists of wild colours and depictions of primitive objects and people. As it became more popular, it became formally known as Expressionism and spread notably to Germany. Futurism began in the 20th century as a social movement. It portrayed things like war and machine age. This movement was not popular in 1909 until the end of the World War I. Futurism was a unique and self-invented art movement. The futurist representations of movements influenced many painters and two art movements, Cubism and Russian Constructivism. The art movement Dadaism was the main influence of Surrealism. This art movement originated in Paris during World War I in the 1920s. When the Surrealism first began, no one was attracted to it until after the 1920s. It was started to spread influence around the world and artists from different art movements. The abstract movement first began in the 19th century. The three main movements that inspired artists to create abstract art was Romanticism, Impressionism, and Expressionism. The main pioneers of abstract art was Kandinsky, Malevich, and Mondrian. They believed that they can add shapes to objects that don't have to be geometric shapes. Some people refer to it as concrete art or non-objective art, but it is mostly commonly known as abstract art. Pop art began in Britain when it reached popularity in the 1950s, then reached the United States in the early 1960s. Pop art was a movement that idolized everyday living and everyday things such as advertising and comic books. Pop art and minimalism are said to be the two movements that influenced modern art. Only in America did pop art become popular by changing the colors of everyday objects into more interesting advertisements. It eventually spread across the world to places like Spain, Russia, and Japan. People often confuse op art with pop art, but the term op art is short for optical art and is an art style. Op art is mostly considered abstract and black and white. It gives the feeling of movement and confusion when you look at it. When the movement of op art first emerged in Time magazine in 1964, it was just black and white. Later on, colour was added in 1966 by the op artist Bridget Riley. However, op artists were interested in making colour the primary focus of their work. No one can truly say when digital fine art began, but the movement still managed to sneak up on the world. It has a very close relatives like graphic design, photography, animation, and other kind of digital-based art movements. Designers and animators render large, beautiful, high-resolution, two-dimensional images. The computer has become the ultimate mate in the media playground.